the great conservative movement of America and of our time. A brush fire of freedom is being lit all over this country. We, as an irate, tireless American populace, will overcome the few radical leftists that control the levers of power today. Joe Biden's failed economic policies has given us inflation like you can't believe, and the border is in disarray.
It's amazing how few of the people commenting on this have actually bothered to go see what's happening. Well, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona actually went to the border.
Biggs, where's Andy? Boy, oh boy, Andy. There's a guy. He's tough.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of my semi-regular broadcast, my podcast called What's the Biggs Idea? I appreciate you joining us. I am so honored to have a man I've come to know and respect. He is the sheriff of Cochise County, Arizona, which is one of the biggest counties in the country. He does an incredible job. They are facing an incredible invasion, if you will. And there's so many things to talk about on the border, but I want to give you just a little background. He was first elected in 2012 to this beautiful county in southeastern Arizona. He's a 39-year law enforcement veteran and United States Army veteran. He has a master's degree. He's currently serving as the Border Security Chairman of the National Sheriff's Association. He serves on so many service organizations. You can barely see this guy. It's tough to get time with him because he's so busy. He's won the Medal of Valor. He's won the Western States Sheriff of the Year. He's won so many awards. It fills up not just one wall in his office, but it fills up 2 or 3 walls. He's that good. But one of the things I will tell you is yesterday in my floor speech, I started off talking about your deputy who was injured in the line of duty pursuing a human trafficker the other day. Sheriff, how is that deputy? Tell us about what's happening on the ground in Cochise County, Arizona.
Oh, first of all, Congressman, thank you for the nice, warm introduction. Too kind. Let me just say that. I'm a pretty simple man. Deputy Oleski was hurt last Thursday evening while trying to interdict on a smuggler driver that was going over 100 miles an hour, fleeing from my deputies. This is a daily occurrence here in Cochise County. Sad to say, sad to report to you and your viewers. Why he was doing this, he fell over a guardrail 15 feet down into a wash. He had multiple fractures. He took a turn for the worse last Saturday after surgery. It's been touch and go ever since. He's shown some signs of improvement over the last couple of days, which we call that hope. Talking to the family and our chaplain, who's been up there with the family since Sunday night. Family has flown in from all over the country. This man, this deputy Oleski, I'm going to give him a shout out. I got the opportunity. Actually, as a retired Marine, spent serving our country, and now been with us working part of my interdiction team. Now, I want to give this add-on. His brother is a U.S. Border Patrol agent who also served in the Marine and Navy. 2 military brothers that have served their country well, now serving their communities well. And let me just say this: his brother was assaulted aggressively and viciously assaulted about a little over a year ago in my county. I working as a Border Patrol agent. The 2 illegals actually jumped him on a trail and tried to cut his throat. So these 2 brothers have put their lives on the line for this country, my community down here. So please, and I'd ask, keep both of them in your prayers and their family. This is a hard time. I was up there Sunday. It's tough, Congressman. It's tough to be there. It's tough in the fact that watching this family go through something that they didn't cause the problem. No offense, this President of the United States needs to prioritize his dang border and get Secretary Marks to do his dang job.
Sheriff, you mentioned, first of all, we do keep the deputy in our prayers. And before we came on live, you were telling us a little bit about another deputy injured, I believe just last night, in another high-speed chase. First of all, give us the status of that deputy, but then tell us about your community in your county and why you're seeing these chases and how often they occur.
Well, my deputy yesterday afternoon, right a little after lunch, They were involved in a pursuit. He's part of my interdiction team. In fact, he's one of Deputy Oleski's teammates on that team unit. They were involved in an interdiction yesterday. Pursuit speeds over 107 miles an hour. We ended up interdicting the vehicle with spikes. I believe it spiked it twice. The vehicle actually went off road, crashed. The illegals ran from the vehicle. The driver and passenger, U.S. citizens, ran. Actually, the driver dropped a semi-automatic, I think it was a 9mm handgun during this. But during the foot pursuit, the deputy foot got caught up in the terrain and twisted his leg up. Long story short is he was transported from the scene to the hospital. Looks like he's going to be out for at least a couple months, if not longer. So, and he's doing well. I talked to him again last night. It's just, Congressman, I'll just say this. We've incentivized this border. There is no consequences not to come. Why would you not come? You look at the people, you come, credible fear asylums become a disaster in this country. It's not being enforced by the rule of law or judicial oversight that it needs. So they're going to keep coming. We're seeing record numbers. I always tell people, well, the sheriff, this is political. It might be political by the people applying and delivering the policies, but it's not political to us. This is a public safety issue that we need to put a grip on. When you look at public safety, the amount of people coming across, the amount of criminals, 18,500 serious criminals were apprehended on the border in federal fiscal year in 2023. Now you put that in perspective, that's what we know of. Look at the 600,000 gotaways last year, and look at the 1.5 since this president took office of gotaways, and that's a minimal number. We have no idea who these people are, but I can promise you the reason they're not giving up is they can't because they're criminals or aggravated or countries of interest. We have to do a better job securing this country, and it's an insult to anybody who wears a badge, state, local, and federal. When Secretary Mayorkas or the White House press secretary says that this president's done more to secure the border than anybody or the border is effectively secured, that is a complete false narrative, and it's an insult to us wearing the badge, doing everything we can. And ask my deputy if this border is effectively secure that's sitting in the hospital right now fighting for his life.
So we'll keep your deputies in our prayers. We'll keep you in our prayers. But let's talk now. How big is Cochise County? What's the population like? What's the terrain like? And you guys, then we'll talk about the sector. You're in the Tucson sector, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So please tell everybody who doesn't know a little bit more about the population and the geography of your county.
Well, our county is the 38th largest landmass county in the country, just under 6,300 square miles. We have 83 miles of international border with Mexico here in our county. And a lot of people relate to us because of Tombstone. We have the Western theme, the Western Town Too Tough to Die here in our county, the Tombstone. We have Fort Huachuca. We have a military reservation. We have no tribal lands. We're one of the few in Arizona that has no tribal lands, even though we're rich with Cochise and Geronimo, the Apache tribe that was here. We honor that. But so we're holistic when we patrol 6,300 square miles, excluding the Fort Huachuca, even though we have a great partnership and we do some things with them up there, that installation. So I have 99 sworn deputies, to include myself, that patrol this large county, that are stepping up, trying to do everything we can. We're on the front line of border security. We're on the front line of national security, and we're on the front line of humanitarian when it comes to human trafficking. I think it was this last 72 hours, we got 2 migrants that we've recovered that died in this county. Everybody talks about, wow, this is a humanitarian. Ask the 1,500 migrants that came across the border legally and then died of exposure or died on U.S. soil that sheriffs, the 31 sheriffs on the border have had to address. There's no win in this, Congressman, and we're seeing it every day. We see disasters every day.
So you mentioned a moment ago that you see these high-speed chases every day. So I would like you to elaborate on that, and then also, please elaborate on people. A lot of my colleagues across the aisle, and I'll just give you 2 statements that I've heard in the last week. Last week, I was testifying in the Rules Committee, and the ranking member said there is no border crisis. It's all a contrived talking point, and it's not real. So that was one thing. I want you to continue to elaborate on that. But the second one is, and I debunked this as well. They say 94% of all the drugs coming across the border are through the ports of entry, brought over by American citizens. And I point out to them repeatedly, the reason you interdict more drugs in the ports of entry is because you have a concentrated effort there. And they're not, these vast swaths like in Cochise County or Pima County or Yuma County, they're wide open. Santa Cruz, they're wide open. And so that's where people are escaping and getting through. Can you elaborate on who's driving these people, how they recruit, how cartels control and recruit drivers, and the chases that you are seeing and how they negatively impact what's going on in your community?
Well, let me start off with the congressman that says there is no border security, there is no border issue. First of all, if you just set aside the political ideology, whether you're Republican, Independent, Democrat, once you set aside your political ideologies, look at the political the numbers, the public safety numbers, the numbers crossing the border, the amount of deaths on the border, and the amount of fentanyl, the poison coming across that border. Arizona leads the nation. Last year in 2022, just the 4 border counties in Arizona seized over 35 million pills on the border. Arizona led the nation last year with 68 million pills, and the rest mainly coming out of Maricopa County, which is the Phoenix area. However you look at it, there's no win here. It's an insult when a congressman says that. You're saying it for your political party because you have no clue what's going on in this border when it comes to the realness of it. And that's an insult for us down here, putting our lives on the line for this country. And I would, for anybody that serves community, serves state, serves the federal government, look at their oath of office and go back and refresh that, because that puts it back into perspective, and then come visit us and let's see the reality of this border. Now, when it comes to these pursuits, when it comes to fentanyl, the poison coming across the border, killing families, communities, and children in this country, you got to go back to the criminal cartels. That is the root of this problem. These transnational organizations, these criminal cartels that control the south side of our border, whether it's in Yuma, Arizona, whether it's in Cochise area, whether it's in Eagle Pass, Del Rio, wherever it's at, it's irrelevant. They control what comes across, from human trafficking, human smuggling. And let me just say that, and go back to what a congressman said. That's modern day slavery at its worst. And we see it. We see the negative impact, that what they do to these people, the exploitation of these people. That right there should get anybody, set their politics aside, to go address that and help these people. We're protecting migrants as much as we are U.S. citizens down here. And that needs to be a collective effort between state, local, and federal. But the cartels control, Congressman, what comes across that border. They tell the drivers that come to my county, $1,500 per month is the average of what comes into my county, to smuggle for profit. They're disposable drivers. A lot of them are criminals that come here. Then we have a new law in Arizona, and I'll share it with your viewers. It went into effect September 28th of 2022. So in 11 months since we've been enforcing that law, we put 409 people in my jail for smuggling a class 2 felony in Cochise County. Just my county alone, 409 for smuggling. And they came from all over the country because of greed and to commit international crime. That should be a shame to anybody that partakes in this and participates in this. But they do it because of money. They get about $2,000 to $2,500 per person to drive from Cochise County to Maricopa, which is the Phoenix area. You pick up 4, you got $8,000. You round it off in a simple math. That's why they're coming. That's why they're doing it. And they're told by the cartels, once you pick up, and they're camouflage people they're picking up, these are aggravated people, and they go 100 miles an hour out of my county, because if they get out of here and challenge law enforcement here, the chances of being caught is nil to none. And by the way, we've had over 100 juveniles under the age of 18 apprehended for smuggling, all the way down to the ages of 12 and 13 years of age. That right there should make you sick too, when it comes to what's going on this border. Again, I could talk all day on our local stats. All I can say is that Congressman has said that, and those that believe in that thought are hiding from reality, Congressman.
Yeah, I agree. And I often tell them, I'm happy to take you down. We'll go see some of our border sheriffs and we'll see what's happening, and you can adjudicate it for yourself, whether it's real. I mean, so when you get in the high-speed chases, I know you've had juveniles driving those high-speed chases with those cars through your community. How big is Sierra Vista, for instance? And do they come roaring and racing through Sierra Vista?
All the time. I mean, we're saturated throughout these pursuits for all the time. The reason my numbers aren't tripled or beyond is I don't have triple resources. So we have a limited amount of resources with a maximum amount of results right now. So they do. They race through every day. Service is a town of about 45,000 people. We're very good at local and state and federal working together and we do the interdiction nets, trying to stop these people before they kill somebody. But to give you just one example on one of those juveniles, we have a 16-year-old in my jail that was going over 100 miles an hour and ran from law enforcement here. One of the deputy marshals, Tombstone, took off due to the community risk. The deputy marshal terminated the pursuit. We did the interdiction net, which means we're putting plans in place to interdict this 16-year-old. We didn't know who it was at the time. He was smuggling. 30 miles down the road with no law enforcement behind him, went through an intersection and killed a mom who just retired going to her birthday party. Again, I can say it again. These are tragedies we've seen. In fact, I was told the other day, in the last 19 months, 20 months, whatever it is, we've had double-digit murders in my county from migrant pursuits. So again, it just goes back to the magnitude of what we're seeing, the tragedy of what we're seeing, and why Congress and members of Congress failed to see reality. Because what happens in Cochise County doesn't stay in Cochise County. Right. It's infectious, it's toxic, it's coming to every community in this country. Everybody, federal, state, and local, have to recognize it, agree on it. Let's put some reasonable action behind it to fix it. If that doesn't happen, this is going to get worse.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Tucson sectors a little bit, because that's where Cochise County is in. When I talk about sectors, there's 9 sectors that CBP has on the southwest border from Rio Grande Valley all the way over to San Diego. And in the Tucson sector, you've got, I think you guys are 83 miles on the border, Cochise County?
Yes.
And then you have 62 miles of the Tohono O'odham Reservation over in Pima County. And so, but this is, the total is something, I want to say 175, something like that, linear miles. And it is the #1 drug smuggling corridor in the country, which makes it the #1 drug smuggling corridor in the world. And most of the drugs that come through there are coming through, and they're not interdicted, because these are the groups that are coming in camo. They're wearing carpet shoes. They're trying to hide from the cameras. They're trying to hide, and it's like you said, they have some kind of criminal history, or they're coming from a country of interest, or they're bringing in people from a country of interest, or they're bringing in drugs. They're not surrendering. The ones you hear about that are surrendering, the 300,000 last month or 2 months ago that came in and surrendered, those are your encounters. These are people that are getting away that we guesstimate how many there are, because that's really the issue that's going on. It does not. This border is not secure. By the way, I'll give this to you, Sheriff, because I don't think I've told you this, but when Secretary Mayorkas was testifying recently, and we put him through, we showed him the Secure Fence Act, which defines what operational control of the border is, that he's required to have. He said his border is under operational control of the border secure. And we said, but does it meet this standard? He said, no, we've devised our own standard. That's what he said. So he basically ignores the statute, ignores the law, and decides he's going to do his own thing. I don't want to put you on the spot, but tell me about what the sheriffs think needs to be done.
Well, we presented, to go back, Congressman, and let me say something too, I think it's important. If you look at just the fentanyl, between Cochise County, Santa Cruz County, which leads, I believe, the nation, but you look in that section of the Tucson sector, our 2 counties, I believe it's just under 24% of all the fentanyl in the country is seized on the southeast corner of Arizona in 2022. That kind of tells you what's coming through, which represents 5 to 10% of what's coming across. So 90% is getting through. Right. That should be scaring everybody. But going back to what sheriffs need to do, we've met with Secretary Mayorkas. We've shared a 16-point action plan with Secretary Mayorkas to say, here's what sheriffs have worked on behalf of national sheriffs. I was part of that. I actually personally hand carried that to Secretary Mayorkas. 3 months later, sheriff's like, where's this at? I said, I don't know. I got with the secretary. I asked the secretary, where are we at with that? Can we regroup on that? What can we talk about? What did you like? What you didn't like? Here's the statement back to me, Congressman. Did you give me a document? Long story short is that went nowhere. We have been, the comfort words are always on the table with Secretary Mayorkas. He's very intelligent to use the right words. He's the Webster master. But when it comes to action, we don't have it. One thing I said to Secretary Mayorkas, and I'll share it with you, Congressman, and your viewers, is we need enhanced judicial oversight on the border for credible fear asylum claims. Put judicial oversight on that. Let those hearings happen immediately, like we do in our respective communities throughout the United States every day. And I illustrate it this way. Pull out your judges in every community and see what happens when they go the next day to see the judge or immediately see the judge, and there's nobody to see him for a murder charge, DUI, domestic. What happens? They get dismissed, they're released. Sometime down in the future, you can address it. That's the exact same thing happened on our border. Secretary Mayorkas made a comment with me in a room in El Paso, Texas, and about 10 other sheriffs, 12 other sheriffs, and said, Sheriff, you're 100% correct. Now, he has made statements saying he's going to deploy him down here, but to date, we have not seen it. We could take care of securing the border, and we could do judicial oversight, and that could fix it. The other thing Sheriff says is remove the politics, enforce the rule of law, share an action plan by state, local, and federal. Bottom line is, if we prioritize the border, we can prioritize securing it. But that has not happened in Washington, D.C., especially from this president or Secretary Mayorkas.
Yeah, I want to, before we run out of time, and we're pretty close to running out of time, I just want to make 2 quick points, if I can. Sheriff Dannels knows me. It's tough for me to make a quick point, but I'm going to try.
Okay.
First of all, let's think about the numbers since President Biden became president. The last year Trump was president, for the entire year, the Yuma sector had fewer than 8,000 encounters. I want that people that is so critical to understand. Fewer than 8,000 encounters. A week ago, they had something like 11,000 encounters in 1 week. That's what has happened here. The Biden administration is totally, and Secretary Mayorkas is, in my opinion, is the architect of this. He's totally abdicated his responsibility, and I think this is exactly what he wants. I think the second point is I want to just thank you, because I know we have some of the best sheriffs in the country in Arizona working on our border issues, and you're one of them. People need to understand that Arizona is trying to get this under control, but particularly it's an all community approach. So in Cochise County, the mayors, regardless of party, are trying to work together. Yeah. There's the police organizations are working together, and the sheriff's organizations are working together, and the prosecutors are working together. So when they find someone that in some places they're not prosecuting for some of these charges, in Cochise County, you've got a prosecutor who will actually take the case and prosecute them. And I don't know what his conviction rate is, but I think it's pretty close to 100%. Am I wrong on that, Sheriff?
You're exactly right. And that's Brian McIntyre. He does an amazing job. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah. So I just get so baffled. Can it be fixed? It can be fixed. It just takes political will and effort and commitment. But we don't see that in D.C. right now from our colleagues across the aisle, and it's a crying shame. And quite frankly, a lot of my colleagues give lip service to it, but they aren't willing to leverage every point, because I believe this is an existential crisis. You have to leverage every point to get this administration, which is lawless, to enforce it. So the last point I guess I'll make is this. If you don't have the rule of law, it's impossible to have freedom, because you'll have the opposite. You'll have anarchy. The rule of law says that people will comport themselves in a civilized manner, and that's why we have law enforcement. They capture the people who are big, and they're the bullies, for instance, and they wreak havoc. And thank goodness for law enforcement like you, Sheriff Dannels. Thanks for your whole team. Tell your wife thank you for her support. She's been great been a great support for you, and I know, and you've got a great team. And I've been down to Cochise County many times, and only if all counties were like you and several of the others in Arizona, I think we might make a big dent in this. But God bless you. Be safe, and thanks for taking time out for us today. Sheriff Dannels, last word to you.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for what you do too. I'd be remiss if I didn't echo that back to you too. And thank you, Congressman, for keeping the attention in Washington, D.C., people like you, members like you that are doing the right thing. And but I promise you, sheriffs, congressmen like you, we can fix this. And we thank you to my citizens here in Cochise County. They're doing the right thing with us too. They're out crying about it because they're upset about it for the right reasons. But I promise you one thing, we're going to come out with some new operational upbeat temples. We're going to have some more resources coming to Cochise County, but we're going to keep doing our part. We're not leaving this problem left unattended. So thank you, Congressman, for all you do.
Well, thanks, and we'll get with you, and I'll be back down to Cochise County as soon as my schedule allows. But God bless you, and thanks to everybody who participated and listened in, and those who were commenting, both the nice ones and also the unnice ones. You know, it's okay. This is a free society, and I welcome the critiques as well. God bless you, Sheriff. Stay safe. We'll
God bless you. Take care.